Welcome to the show that explores the methods and strategies on rocking the financial side of your music business. With over 40 years combined experience, here are your hosts, Chris Webb and Dave Tampkin.
Welcome to Musicians Tip Jar, where we talk about musicians and money. Where we will keep showing up to discuss these issues in hopes that it will help you show up more for yourself. I'm Chris Webb, joined by my co-host and the guy who even canceled his Roomba class to be here, Dave Tampkin.
Good to be here. I was glad to cancel. You know what we do? We have to teach our Roomba what rooms to go in with. You know, what pattern to do on the carpet. That's what we teach at the Roomba class. So, I don't know. Maybe it won't vacuum as much as it did last week because I canceled my class. And I know you're going to say Roomba is something else, but that's okay.
I don't know what it is either. I just know people go and work out there. Today we discuss the simple power of showing up. We expose how this simple idea is often the difference between why people succeed. It exposes the reality that often it's not what we need to do, but instead how to get ourselves to show up and do the damn thing. Today's quote comes from Tina Payne Bryson, who's the author of The Power of Showing Up. She said, "Not perfect, but present." And I know in this context she's discussing parenting, but I actually think in some ways we're always parenting ourselves, so there is some relevance to what we're talking about here.
This week's nonprofit is mostmadison.org. Since 2008, Madison Music Makers has offered music instruction and performance opportunities to Madison's youth, regardless of ability to pay. Madison Music Makers is a wonderful community of families from many walks of life that have come together through a shared belief in the value and the benefits that music education offers. Focus, perseverance, self-confidence, and the joy of making beautiful music alone and in a group. Check them out at mostmadison.org.
Today's guest, Jared Oluwa, is a 35-year-old artist from Los Angeles who is an instrumentalist and a vocal producer. Growing up with a musical family, he tends to work closely with his youngest brother, whose company is called Beats Made by Fresh. He plays a big part with instrumentation, and together they've landed placements on BET, VH1, MTV, and many more. Aside from music, Jared has also had a heart to share his knowledge with his creative community. Some of the organizations he's volunteering for: Youth Mentoring Connection, Music Forward, and the Grammy U program as a mentor. In 2021, he joined the LA Recording Academy, where he became involved in the advocacy and served on the Professional Development Committee. Oluwa shares his journey with us, how he got into sync, using social media and finding ways to sneak a nap, all while still showing up for what he and his community need. Let's go. Jared Oluwa, thank you so much for being here on Musicians Tip Jar.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Definitely looking forward to, what we're going to talk about today.
So you're out in California at the moment, right? Enjoying that beautiful West Coast.
So yeah, I'm over here in Los Angeles, born and raised here. And, the sunny state, palm trees and other things, traffic, high prices and things of that nature. And in Hollywood,
Yeah, it is an expensive place to live, isn't it?
I don't even talk about it. Please, no reminders.
I had the privilege of being up in the Bay Area last week, and I love going there because it reminds me of how extraordinary the state of California is, with how much diversity when it comes to, like, 1 minute you're on the coast, 1 minute you're up in these redwood trees, and then it's hot, it's cloudy, it's everything happening things at once.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, in LA, being such a perfect weather most of the time, although now I'm starting to feel like every time I come to LA, there's an atmospheric river occurring. When I'm not there, I think it's perfect weather all the time. Tell me a little bit about your growing up there and getting into the music industry. Like, what got you started on this path?
So actually, both parents started me, within church. They actually both still sing and play to this day. And so it was kind of like no choice but to follow the music line. And so started there, born and raised in that. Started in church. I was like 13, sweating, playing on the organ, trying to figure out the chords.
Wow.
And then just made my way. It actually got me better because like all of the songs that they sung, because I hate practice, I didn't know them. And so I just had to find them by ear and do the best I could. And it actually got me far in life, just trying to figure things out.
You went from playing with the church to starting to compose your own music, and I've heard you talk about kind of doing a lot of stuff with your brother, right?
Yeah.
So how did that kind of come about?
So my brother, we, of course, same family. So his production was more at a higher quality. And so I know quality when I hear it. And I'm like, yo, he's younger than me, but he's better than me. So I'm like, hey, listen, let me just focus on the vocals. You focus on the instrumentals. You send them to me. We do a 50-50 split. And we just started making songs and getting them placed. And I was like, yeah, you're my producer now. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah.
What's the age difference between you and your brother?
A 3.5 year age difference. Yeah.
Did he play in church as well?
He did, and then he quit. He played the drums when I was on the organ, and he was like, "I'm done. I'm getting married. I'm leaving the church. It's not for me." And I was like, "Okay, well, here I'm by myself right now again."
Has it
So
been a pretty good partnership over the years? And
yeah,
being siblings, sometimes we're a little more honest with each other. Has there been issues with that working with family?
sometimes I might have a little bit of a difference sometimes because sometimes as family they can be like, "Arr," and I can have an ego. Artists can have an ego. And so a lot of times it's just like, hey, there's no payment right now, but hopefully this is gonna be something beneficial and lucrative in the future. And when he started to see that happening, it's just like, okay, what else do you need? You need me to send all the stems? I'll send it all right now. You need more beats? I'll send 10 right now.
Hmm.
And at first it was like, what's it for? How much is it? What's the payment? I'm just like, we can't move like that. Like, you
Mhm.
gotta believe in this thing. You know what I mean? And,
Mhm.
and over time, he became a believer when the
Hmm.
money started coming in, when the credits started coming in. He was like, oh, okay. Like, let me know what else you need from me now. So
Do you guys have an official business that you work under together, or do you just split it, kind of let the system split it?
yeah, we just do everything 50-50. So on the writers, on the publishing, so whatever I, land, always going to split no matter, how much he did, if he was on there or if he, got something started, I'm still going to do a split 50
Yeah,
50 split.
yeah.
We're both independent. He's doing his instrumental thing and I'm doing, the vocal thing. And just when we come together, that's when we just actually work on something. So it's not like a group per se, but it's our own individual talents that we just bring together when it's needed.
Aside from vocals, would you consider organ to be your main instrument, or would you call it? I mean, I think of the organ, especially the church organ, as a very unique instrument with lots of unique requirements in order to perform.
Yeah, yeah. And it was a Hammond B3, which is like the
Okay,
favorite like church organ.
totally.
So I do love that sometimes more than piano. And more because if you mess up, you really don't know. You can and like kind of cover it up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I said earlier, I don't like practice. So
Eh,
if I mess up, I'm going to mess up while we're live. So the organ kind of makes it more of a like, oh, I did that on purpose. Like that was a jazz riff. Like, what are you guys talking about? Like piano sounds different. You mess up, it's like
Yeah, I always slip up on that one sharp that I forget's in the key.
You're
yeah.
always one half step away from the right note.
Uh,
So,
was that? That's
I
a
like the
quote.
way you think.
Victor Wooten.
Victor Wooten.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Oh, couldn't let me have it, Chris, could you?
I knew I read that somewhere.
Hey, that's not an original, is it?
That's what I say about half the sync music I hear too, though.
Yo, that's a whole nother thing. We don't want to get into that.
Well, maybe we do, but let's wait on that. I want to know a little bit more about your progression into becoming a vocal producer and like kind of where you found your footing as you were creating music, especially when you're working with your brother or with anybody else that you're co-creating. How did you find your strengths and where did you kind of decide to lean into and let back on?
Before I got into sync, I was doing a lot of studio stuff with artists. and other producers, B list, A list, and all I could get was, oh, look at me. I'm in the studio with so and so, but I couldn't get paid from that. Nothing came from that. And so after not being credited, songs came out, videos came out, no credit, no payment. I'm like, this hurts.
Hmm.
So, when I realized I can just be at home doing records by myself or with my brother and not have to worry about being quote unquote burned in the industry, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna work from home. 2020 came, I learned a lot. What is that thing called? Where everybody was on the phone talking.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was the app where everybody was on there talking in 2020. It just
Yeah.
like blew up crazy. But I got on there, was getting a lot of information, was doing a lot of research, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna start doing this from home. It actually led me to more sync licensing, meeting music supervisors, coordinators, and then they
Wow.
definitely helped me build relationships to get, my first syncs back in 2020.
Yeah. Would you say that LA was like a critical part of having those connections be easier to be made?
I want to say yes, because the person that I met was in person,
Hmm.
and I could have made a connection online, which is a two-part. I met them in person, we connected on Instagram, and then I posted something on my story, instrumental that I was working on, and they were like, "Hey, how come you haven't sent me any records?" And I'm like, "Is
Wow.
a music supervisor asking me to send them records?" So this is my first time. So I'm like, wait a minute, this is my chance. So I did some research about the music that they make, so I'm not sending random records.
Yeah.
And then I sent the 5 piece, and then they were like, "Oh, these are great. We got to make an EP." And I'm like, let's
Oh.
go. So one of
Mm.
those songs that we made ended up being placed on Oprah's network own with Ava DuVernay. It's called Cherish the Day.
Hmm.
And that was my first thing placement. And I was just like, well, this thing is real. Like,
Yeah. It shows the example of how to use social media in a way that's more organic and still
yeah,
integrated with non-social media methods,
for
right?
sure.
Before we get into more social media questions, because I think you are very entertaining on your Instagram. I want to just kind of know, with the creative approach now, being someone that is leaning in mostly on sync, do you feel that you put most of your energy into what people are asking for, or do you still find yourself organically creating from just random moments in life?
So I love the question only because last night I just got back to creating stuff for myself. And it's been at least 2 years when I stopped creating for myself and just started creating to a brief.
Yeah.
So before then, because it was like, okay, I know what they're looking for, so I have to write different.
Right.
And, I can't say, oh yeah, it was a starry night with my red car. Like, yeah, the scene is summertime and we're on a bike. So, you know what I mean? So I was less objective, and I started to understand, like, when you're writing for sync, you have to be more general and, kind of like be used for like more double entendres, if you will.
Yeah.
Chris asked an important question about your location and where you live and
Mhm.
how you feel about that not being an excuse often. That I saw a post of yours. You said you felt very emotional leaving this post because you feel so strongly about it. Could you talk about that post in relation to where you live and how that shouldn't be an excuse?
The thing that social media exists, you can meet anybody anywhere as long as they're online. And it can be Google. It doesn't have to be just Instagram only, but also LinkedIn is another place where it's just saturated with the right people, in a good way. So if you take the initiative to make those connections, then it's kind of like, okay, when you do get a chance to come to LA, if you need to do it at least once a year, you can already establish those relationships. So when you do get here, it's just like, oh, hey, it's me, Jared. We spoke, in the DMs about such and such, or whatever the case is, or follow up before you get here, like, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you the week before, type of thing. So there's ways to doing it, even like getting on different Zooms or different sync panels online, different conferences, different organizations online. And it's like, show face, show up. You might not always have to say something, but being in person is definitely going to elevate the chances and opportunities, but that's not going to always be the reason why you make it.
I liked how you said, and forgive me if I don't remember the exact towns, but you're like, I don't care if you're in Montana or Michigan, show up to your community, Get
Yeah.
online, be a part of it. And I think you said something like you'll find your bag in any area you
Yeah.
know you want to. And another thing you said was to show up. That's the first thing. And that's something Chris and I talk quite a bit about, especially in networking and being a part of your community and giving back to it, that
Yeah.
how important it is to at least first show up.
That's definitely key, showing up. I've had so many opportunities come to me just because I showed up, and I may not have known anybody, but I was there. Chris can definitely attest to that. Just being there. One of the ladies from Pandia Music, her name is Rebecca. She needed help passing out her flyers, and she was like, "Oh, Jared, I started that relationship with her online. I just met her this year, and we've been online 2 years." And so that's another thing. Like, she lives in LA, never met her in 2 years,
Hmm.
seen her at the Durango Songwriting Expo in Ventura,
Mhm.
and she remembered me online. It was
Mm.
like, "Oh, Jared, I need you to do me a favor. Can you do this?" And that's
Yeah.
how I met Chris, by sitting at the table.
Yeah.
So it's just like those relationships. It might not be that month, that year. Like I said, 2 years later, it's, hey, it comes through.
Yeah.
You also ended that post with every day I'm doing something different. I'm showing up every day and connecting with these people. And that becomes like a ritual, a pattern, something you do for not only yourself, but for the people that you surround yourself with, and you're lifting those people up. And I think that getting into that behavior is something that just becomes part of you. And it's a way, I know you said you don't like practicing, but in a way to get used to that. And Chris going to these networking events, I might not be as comfortable in that event,
Yeah.
but I know hanging out with Chris and the things we've learned together, showing up and be able to even speak online like this, like speaking English has been something new I've had to learn, just because it's so hard to do when you're talking to an audience. So I really liked how you did that, because you're like, every day you're telling people that are listening to you just to show up, and that's a great place to start.
And it's not only just for the people and for the audience, it's also for self. When we talk to others and elevate others, it's also an echo coming back around and be like, yeah, you hear that, right? This is what you should be doing. And so it becomes, even if you don't do it every day, because a lot of times we think that it can, be like, oh, if I do it every day, I'll be great. Yeah, but putting that time in, and like you said, like a ritual and a tradition, it's like sometimes you're not going to feel like doing it. And those who push through and do it when they don't feel like it, kudos to you. Sometimes I'm like, look, I know I got this deadline, but I'm gonna take a nap right quick. Like, I don't feel like doing it today. I'm do it later. And that's a human thing, and I'm okay with that as well. Just make sure you make that deadline and, deliver when you're supposed to.
Mm.
I've learned that here at Musicians Tip Jar. It started out as to raise other musicians up and teach them stuff that Chris and I have learned, over the years. But then you do research on someone like yourself, and you're inspired again to do the things that you've forgotten about, or the things that you don't do every day, and
Yeah.
you're reminded. And there is that little bit of imposter syndrome sometimes, because we're discussing these things with musicians, like we do them, but no, I don't do them all the time. And if anything, I'm learning is a tool for me to show up to do this, and to show up for my friend Chris to make that deadline, like you said, but also be inspired by all the people that we get to meet and say, hey, yeah, I have a lot of work to do. So
Yeah.
it is a pleasure to be able to speak with you today after all the research I've done and got to know you that way. So thanks again for doing this.
Yeah. Dave, I appreciate you for bringing it back up, because sometimes I forget that stuff myself, and I'm like, I said that, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did, So it's like a refreshing thing to be like, yeah, get back to that as well, because I might have moved away from doing that, and you bringing it back up, it's like a good thing to be refreshed and be like, I got to pick that back up again.
Well, sometimes I say things like, "Oh, you're only one half, no, half step away from the correct note," and I think, "Oh, I'm so smart, I'm so good." And then Chris is there to be like, "No, come up with original ideas."
Yeah.
You could have said you were one half step lower than, or you could have changed it just enough,
Yeah, like,
I want to expand on one thing you just said about how we use social media to network, create community, to build opportunity, but also you have to be authentic, right? I think that even online, we can read when people are not authentic, and it's a turn off, just like as if we were in one of these conferences where somebody's like just pushing on you to like get something that they want. And you can feel that, right? And you know
for
that
sure.
instantly, I think online as well. But aside from that, the other thing you mentioned was kind of using it as inspiration. And I think about that sometimes, how it's like we talk about algorithms and how, people that are QAnon, right? They watch so much of the same stuff. And so the algorithm is rewarding them with more conspiracies, right? And I think musicians, like, we are absolutely subject to the algorithms as well. And it's like if you look at mine and Dave's feed, I on our social media, actually a lot of it's similar content because we're both going for this inspirational, community driven positivity and believing in yourself. That filtering, I think, is actually a great way to program yourself to not give up, right? We can use social media that way to program ourselves to work harder.
And sometimes I can be a little authoritarian, and be like more like, "Hey, get your stuff together, and we don't have time to," and I noticed that may be a good approach to some people, but not to a lot of people. And I've heard like the way you said it kind of hurt my feelings, and it had to make me be like, should I stop and or rethink, or should I keep going because this is my brand authentically? And so a lot of times I deal with that. Like, should I make it more subtle? Should I continue to be who I am? And you just say things how they come out. Because some people is like, yo, I'm glad you said that. You made me get back on my stuff. And I appreciate hearing that, because I didn't think that it was going to motivate you. I was just talking just because I'm dealing with something and I wanted to say how I wanted to give up. And somebody was like, hey, yo, you make me feel better about having my job. Because a lot of times in LA, it's if you're doing music, you don't tell people that you're working because now it feels like the music is not working for you. And so
Right.
they like, what, you have a job? Oh my God, I thought you were in sync licensing. It's not working. But I
Yeah.
had to get a job to like get me some discipline. I was going to sleep when I wanted to, going out, and I didn't have anybody telling me what to do. I'm an
Mm.
independent creator. I can do what I want or not do what I want, right? And I found myself slipping, and I was like, oh no, I need a job. I need somebody to tell me what to do to remind me to say, you know what? I don't need this job. I quit. Let me get back to the music and
Yeah.
to create that fire again. And that's exactly what happened. And so right when I quit doing music, I got one of the biggest placements that I've ever gotten in my whole entire life, but I
Mm.
still kept the job.
Mm.
And I was like, no, 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 I still need the job because if I stop the job, I'm going to get back and slump into that, like I'm just chilling and I can do what I want if I want
Yeah.
to. And
Yeah.
I'm still working now. I had two jobs. I wanted three. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I put that on social media and people were like, bro, what? Thanks for saying that. Like, you make me feel better about my job. I'm like, yeah, like, I didn't know, but hey, all right, here we are. Let's be human about it.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
think that concentrated focus helped because it made that time in your day smaller to be able to create?
It did. And I still didn't get back to music though. I was doing research. I was doing, panel conferences, volunteering. I just wasn't creating the art.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still like going out and, saying what conference I can go to, what mentorship program I can be a part of and things of that nature. But it definitely helped bring some discipline where I didn't have it.
Hmm.
What motivated you to start the mentor workshop for creatives in Los Angeles?
I don't know. I just like having conversations with people. And once I listen to the issues that they're going through, I'm always trying to find a solution. And so after I found out no matter what position, what title, what class, what financial level you're at, everybody has something that they're dealing with, some type of challenge. And so the solution-based person in me or ego in me is just like, I can help you. And
Mm-hmm.
so it just started saying, okay, I want to join more mentorship programs. I want to help the people who need help. And I've been a part of so many mentor programs because of that. And I'm just like, who else can I help? What else can I do? How else can I bring my time and share my experiences and stuff like that?
Do you find it easier to do that for others rather than yourself sometimes?
Definitely. I cannot do it for myself. It's like 10% for myself and 90% for others. Even if it's the same thing that I can, say, this is informative, this will help you. It just won't work for myself. Even if it might be right, I won't listen to myself.
Just taking notes here.
Yeah, so it's a weird thing, but I've realized that I'm just like, yo, this is not good. But
The other thing you said there that I had never really thought about before was having more forgiveness for yourself in the process of all this.
hmm,
And I bet as a mentor, you have to help people recognize that they're destructively beating themselves up for what they believe are their failures more often than actually making any progress, right? Or because of that, they're not making any progress.
yeah,
And I see, like you mentioned earlier, like sometimes you need to get some deadlines done, but you feel like taking a nap, so you're gonna do that, you know. And I think there's a rap in there about being forgiving to yourself, being like, this is how I feel right now. I'm gonna go with that, knowing that I will get that done still, right?
yeah,
That feeling of like I'm confident in myself, I trust myself. And so there's like a forgiveness for like the need, in the immediate need. Like I took a nap yesterday, and
yeah, yeah,
it was great. It was
yeah.
great. It was about 22 minutes. You know, my watch told me. I woke up startling because my kid ran in thinking that his friend was hiding in there, and I was worried that his friend was because they were playing hide and seek. And I thought, oh, they. I was so asleep that I didn't even know they were playing hide and seek around me. Like I needed this nap. You know what I mean? And so like I had to be like, I'm not gonna try to hide the fact that I took a nap.
Hey,
It's what it needed. My body said that, and I listened, and I got up and I finished my work. You know what I
there
mean?
we
Like,
go.
but beyond like naps, like sometimes it's like we have these lists of things that we're telling ourselves we're supposed to get done, and we can fight this feeling of wanting to do that, or that we're failing at it, and all of that comes back as guilt, or it comes back as the negative emotions. And I think that sometimes learning how to forgive ourselves for those human experiences is such an important part of finding success and being productive.
Yeah, over the times that you start listening to more people, you start to realize that success means something different for every individual. And so a lot of people think that working hard every day, no breaks, no vacation will get them there faster. And I've never been that way. I've always like, okay, you can work hard and burn out if you like. Me, I'm gonna take vacations within the work season. I'm gonna sleep at 4 p.m. and not feel bad about it because I know that I'm gonna get to where I'm gonna get. It might take me longer because I'm taking more breaks, but I also want to highlight the enjoyment of the actual path that I'm taking.
Mm.
And I don't want to look back and be like, man, I worked so hard, I burned myself out, I got stressed out, and I was just stuck. I want to be like, no, I'm traveling. Like I'm going out the country, I'm going out the state. Like I'm doing things, taking a break, not taking my computer and doing no music. I'm going to actually chill out and relax.
Yeah.
I was just going to see if Jared thought that maybe you moving the bed out of your studio would help you take less naps. Jared, what do you think? Just leave it there.
I have a couch in here, a very nice pull-out couch. It extends out into a bed. I have covers and pillows in here. And so it being here, I don't necessarily take advantage of it being here, but I do want to understand the fact that, hey, when I get tired, I'm gonna go enjoy that couch that I paid a lot of money for.
And I think that it's like that should be on the list of like sustainability ideas. It's like take naps, take rests, take vacations, take breaks, say no, right? We talk about saying no a lot on this show because a lot of people are afraid to say no. Realizing what you need is against your list. It's against your Google Calendar even sometimes. And you have to recognize sometimes what the right choice is for your sustainability in the long term.
Gotta love a fellow napper, Chris. Just something that just ingrained in your soul once you get used to doing it daily.
When I did most of my napping, which was the first time I had ever really done a lot of naps, was when we first had our son, and I was staying home. I stayed home as the stay-at-home parent for many years with both of our kids, and I would get onto their nap schedule because it was just like I was so tired, because I was still playing shows at night and staying home with them all day, and they don't care how tired you are. So you just have to get used to their schedule. So as soon as they fall asleep, I'd fall asleep for 20 minutes or whatever I could. And I was like, wow, I feel really good. Like it was the only way to sustain that craziness of a lifestyle that I had to go through. But since then, I've realized how great naps can get me back onto showing up. It can get me back to a point where I have the energy to keep going.
Yeah. I have a early start. 5:30 is my wake up, and I'm on the computer by 6. And then around 1 or 2 o'clock, I'm done for the day. So for me, it's just a reset button. Like I'm going to take my 30-minute nap and ready for the second part of my day, which is mostly music. And I need that. I need that time just to unwind from focusing, looking at a computer screen for so long.
So where's this negative connotation?
No, I think
Where does it come from?
I can't put it on a recording. I don't want it to come back to me. Some people don't value naps as others.
Yeah, right. I know. Well, Jared is one of those who sees what we see in the value there, and also a lot of other similar experiences. I actually grew up in the church too, playing music first time and singing for the first time in church. So I related with him on that. And I liked that it was a family kind of effort to make music. I also experienced a lot of that as a kid. My older brother was my drummer for my
Really?
for my first band. And I also saw the challenge in that, which is kind of why I brought that up. I guess it was kind of in my mind like that was kind of a challenge for us to stay brothers and also business people. Like that kind of got a little challenging. But I appreciated how he talked about growing into the business, and it was almost more of an organic story, which I think is because he was in LA. He was around people that stuff was occurring for. When I was a kid, I never heard of sync. It never crossed my mind until I was in my, early 30s. So I think you're exposed to different stuff depending on where you grow up, and I think that was a real asset for him.
I liked how he said that he kind of struggled the same as you with his brother, where he wasn't sure how things were going to go. And maybe his brother at first was like, well, if I'm going to devote time to this, how much money might be there on the back end? And he said, that's not how this works. We make music because we love making music, and we just have to continue to make it. And then the pieces will fall where they land. And for him, Kentucky Fried Chicken is a pretty good place to land.
Yeah.
Now that they both show up in that way, it's for the journey, just much like he said, as much of his life. He's going to take a nap. He's going to sit on the couch. He's going to take time off and go on vacation. He makes the journey worth it.
When we are trying to find our place, our footing in this business, I think often fear is the reason we don't show up for so many things. There's often so much concern that one mistake or whatever mistake we make is going to be such a big deal that we'll never recover, or just that it will become such a bigger problem in our path. And truthfully, that's never really the case. Unless you're murdering someone, you're going to recover okay from whatever this is, And so when we're looking at things like being honest on social media, or, being willing to submit your music and work with people that are intimidating to you because they're so impressive to you, these are fears that we need to get past in order to show up.
You're always one half step away from the right note, Chris.
Well said, Dave.
You guys couldn't even give me that. Cite your source.
You're going to go around saying that in different places and wait to see how people react and be like, is that mine now?
I've been telling you day one of this podcast, if you have a quote that you really like that you can't find who said it, just take it for yourself, Chris.
Except for that we all read that book.
Yeah, that's true.
Getting back to the story that he kind of presented with going to the studio, working for other people, and realizing that even though he was doing great work and learning, he wasn't going to get any money out of those circumstances. And that pushed him to show up for himself at home and make that transition into doing it on his own and with his brother. It's easier to make connections when you're in person, but that doesn't mean that you have to work in the studio, right? And that's really an important concept to get, that you can be in a community and be very involved in that community, but still do this stuff DIY, still do what you're doing on your own.
And he also said, if you can't be there in person, find something online, be in a community, show up to give back to the people around you, and just connect. Make your circumstances work for you, not against you.
I also related to the idea of writing for briefs or writing for life, the idea that we're constantly having to do both, really, as you get more and more into that specific path. One thing that always comes up at the sync conferences is that there's a risk of writing to briefs. Because you delude your talent, you delude the depth of your art, and although that might seem like that's what they want, what ends up happening is they expose it, they complain about it. The supervisors that are shopping will be like, this feels too manufactured. And you're like, well, what? This isn't that what you gave me a brief. You told me what you wanted. But then they'll be like, yeah, but we wanted you to have written something already that fit the brief, know, which is, as we'll talk about later, where Jared got his biggest opportunity was something that was totally not for the brief. It just fit well.
Yeah. So I signed up for, it's called thatpitch.com. And every day they send you a brief.
That's cool.
Yeah. So you get some ideas, even if you're not going to submit or you're new to sync. It's kind of fun to get an idea for a song every day.
Totally. And it helps you understand how that industry works.
And it's free to sign up. Yeah, check it out when you have a chance.
That's kind of what we're here to talk about is giving yourself ways to show up, right? And that the more you can increase the opportunity for you to show up, the better your odds are of getting what you want. And sometimes, and I think we're both testaments of this here, you need to recommend good habits to others to simply remind yourself of what it is perhaps that you need to be better at yourself.
And doing those little things every day bleed into the other hobbies you do or your career. And maybe, we talk about ice baths a lot, but it bleeds into every part of my life to just take a deep breath and sometimes not react right away to what's in front of me. And I think I've become a better musician for it. I've become a better partner to Anne for it. Hopefully I'm a better son and brother to my family and also to you. Also to you, Chris. I hope I'm a better podcast co-host.
Me too. The whole thing that I experience with all of my relationships is who are the people that are showing up with honesty and that authentic drive, that personality like you have, that's you can't really be dishonest. And I appreciate that.
Well, it's nice of you to say something nice after I say, I hope I show up for you a little bit better. Rather than I thought you were just going to skirt over it and be like, yeah, kind of. Anyway, Dave.
Well, I mean, I think I'm attracted to being around people that are authentic, that's even in social media. Like I have defriended so many people because I'm like, oh, I don't want to be around, and I can choose to not be around inauthentic people that are trying too hard, and they're on their own journey, and I hope they get where they're trying to go. But the truth is that I get to filter my own, as we talked about, my own algorithm and put it into a context in which can help me thrive.
Well, I think that's what Jared does where, are you writing for the brief or for your life? And because he does those things in his community, he gives back, he shows up and makes really incredible music that is not so much for the brief.
Well, and we wanted to talk a little bit about accepting the phases. I thought this was Jared's story is a really good example of I think he's really good to himself. You know, we talked about the naps, but there's also like the ebb and flow of the way your career is going to go. This is just how things work. It's not like every day you're making an even amount of progress, right? And every day you get a little bit better at everything you do, right? And if we can accept this idea of phases, where sometimes you're going to be super productive in a couple hours, and then all of a sudden it's nothing. And you might not write a song for months, and that can be really hard on a songwriter because you're like, this is my thing. What is wrong with me? Am I losing my thing? And if you can be a little bit nicer to yourself about your situation and accept that perhaps this is what you need right now, then you will get through it and you will return to what it is you're supposed to be so passionate about.
Yep. Something I haven't told you yet, but I just got an MRI done on my shoulder and I have a partial tear. So I find out this Friday whether I have to have surgery or not, but I'm already looking. I got an Irish flute. Just things I could do. And I got a little Lisa's keyboard for left-hand bass. So if my right hand is going to have to be, I'm kind of already planning my creative hiatus of being able to use my right hand. We'll see what comes out of that.
Yeah, you have to keep me up on that. That's going to be a tough one to work around, but you might learn 5 new instruments because of it.
Yeah.
I do love the Irish flute.
Pickle whistle, you're screwed, dude. I'm gonna write the podcast jingle. Start me playing the pickle whistle.
It's one of those instruments that makes me daze off into the distance as I listen to it. You know what I mean?
Well, I just want to see a sunset.
In Irish.
You're talking like this, everyone. Jack Attack, what are we having for dinner this evening? I'm cooking, or are you cooking?
That sounds more British. You sounded just like John Lennon.
It's all the same, no matter what. I mean, that's my Australian accent too. How's everybody doing today?
Well, you can forgive yourself for that. And the rest of us can work on forgiving ourselves for all the other phases that we're trying to work through in order to get where we want to go. It's just a really valuable thing to hear someone else say. And even as we say this, we also are trying to remind ourselves of this. It's a long run, right? It's a long journey, and it's okay to take naps. It's okay to take breaks from doing the things that are, a part of who you are. It's okay to sometimes not feel like working. And if we allow ourselves in some ways to take those instinctive reactions to certain situations, hopefully it re-energizes us, not derails you from any progress at all, but in the end makes you more productive.
Well said.
And if you are doing what we talk about in the financial scale, you'll have plenty of money set aside for those vacations when you want to take them. There's nothing greater than this is just my own take on this, but to be like, I need a vacation. Look up, Bermuda, okay. Which came to my mind because you were just singing that Beach Boy song earlier. And just go. Just go. Sometimes you just need to be able to do that. What a wonderful gift it is to have money put aside for those kind of things, to just be able to go when you need to go. So again, our financial scale is really useful for these kind of things because it allows you to have the power to do what you need when you need it.
I was putting our PDFs together this week. Insurance kept coming up on that. And I was talking to another musician friend about having just health insurance and making sure that you have it. And I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had the Band-Aids on my head because I fell in Sonoma. The ambulance was $3,500 and the hospital bill was $10,500.
Wow.
And thank goodness that I had insurance, because it would have just screwed me so bad. And that was just a silly accident,
Yeah, it's a non-negotiable for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so our one action step today for you all is less about an action and more about examining your inaction. But you need to do this with kindness and look in the areas of your progress that are struggling from your lack of simply showing up. This is your kick in the butt to change that. Just show up for yourself and you will watch what happens. It doesn't mean changing anything else, but giving yourself past that initial fear that might stop you from doing the thing that you instinctively want to do. And we know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending this time with us and being a part of this community. It's our hope that you feel that sense of community here at Musicians Tip Jar, and that you'll help spread the word to make us all stronger. If you'd like to get a hold of us or Jared, what's the best way to do that?
You can go to musicianstipjar.com, where you can check out all the resources and discounts we have collected just for you. You can send us an email, musicianstipjar@gmail.com. Look up Jared on LinkedIn. He has a great LinkedIn right there, but also his Instagram, JaredOluwa.
And if you find this information useful, please take a moment to rate and subscribe to the podcast, and like us if you're watching this on YouTube, so that we can help keep you up on the finance side of your music business. As always, thank you for joining us. And remember, there is already enough for everyone. You just need to know how to get it. Until next time, on behalf of Dave Tamkin and myself, Chris Webb, stay happy, healthy, and wealthy. Often more important than all the things on your to-do list is to simply show up. This is Musician's Tip Jar.
Oh Lord, I could use somebody. I could use somebody. I could use somebody.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, business, or financial professional for individualized advice. Individual results are not guaranteed, and all discussed strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The hosts are operating on behalf of Musicians Tip Jar LLC exclusively.
Could use a little help here. Could use some help. Could use a little help here.